Telling you all for a while that I wanted to do the review of Tiffany Haddish's book, The Last Black Unicorn. And I will be reviewing this book today with Cher from Cher's Life. Now, Cher is going to talk about the beginning part of Tiffany's childhood in the book, and I'm going to kind of be talking about, later on, as she got into the business. Now, there was a lot of things going on where people said that she embellished on her book or in her book, and that she said a lot of things that was not true. Um, so now Tiffany said that whoever edited her book had changed some things around and she didn't know anything about that. But she said the audio is actually the truth because it is her words and it is her speaking it. So I listened to the audio and I also read the book. So we're coming to you with our opinions and what we think about the book. And I am going to go ahead and let Cher get started.
Okay. So after reading the book, I wanted to concentrate on her beginnings as a child because I felt like it was a way for me to understand her more. After reading the book, I did understand her more. So some of the key parts that I found very interesting was that although she had a condition where they were really warts, so the reason why she took on the name the unicorn was because there was a wart that would continuously grow from her forehead. And she talked about, there was one particular time, she talked about always trying to cut it. And she was actually in class one day, and she took some scissors, and she tried to cut the wart off of her head, being a child, not knowing that she was either going to bleed or she could, potentially harm herself. And what I found very, very interesting and significant was no one in her family really said anything about these warts because she had a couple of them. That was one that was between her forehead, which that's how she got the name, the unicorn, but they used to call her a dirty unicorn, actually. They used to say her hair was dirty, even though she talked about having a lot of hair and pretty hair. It just was never done. And so the kids would talk about it being dirty. So for me, that led me to think neglect. Neglect from her family and her mother. And so as she goes on through, there was, of course, her mother trying to work and Tiffany saying, I can watch the kids. You don't have to pay a babysitter. And the mother actually going to work one night and getting into a car accident. Well, for 2 days, Tiffany was there watching her siblings. No one came to the house. No, and you can't tell me for 2 days no one knew where this woman was. No one thought to say, hey, let's go check on the children. So that's why I say once again, neglect. And that's where I feel like Tiffany was kind of left, And then once her grandmother came to the house, that's when they found out her mother had been in a car accident. And that's what Tiffany attributes to her mother's illness.
Right.
Shelley will speak more about it, but here's my thing. There were other things that just were not, as a mother, as a guardian, all of those children were just left to fend for themselves.
I agree with that completely.
Yeah, even before the car accident. So the car accident really, I think there was some underlined just mental instability and neglect. And I keep saying the word neglect because y'all know I love children. You know I believe in children. And it was just no kind of life. I mean, you know, if my child had some type of bump or wart, or you know, warts are dirty and ugly, and it takes a while for a wart to even grow to the size that it continued to grow back. So, in my opinion, there was some upkeep of not keeping her clean. And, you know, the only way a child learns to be clean is if they're taught to be clean.
Right. I also want to add that I do believe that Tiffany was saying that she used to spend so much time trying to get her brothers and sisters prepared for school that she would be the last one getting herself ready, which meant she wasn't really taking out a lot of time for herself, which I mean, she shouldn't have had to have all those responsibilities. And then with her younger siblings wetting the bed and then going to school with, you know, pissy clothes on and things like that, um, it really, no one ever really got involved in the situation until I think a teacher had asked a question from one of her siblings, and that's how CPS had got involved with actually coming to the house and seeing what was going on. But Tiffany and her siblings, they were already suffering long before the accident, in my personal opinion. Now, they were saying that, you know, she's saying that her mother got schizophrenic due to the car accident, which for me, I was like, wow, I've never heard of that before. So I actually did look it up, and they did say that 65% of people are more likely to develop schizophrenia or bipolar or any other kind of issue following a brain, you know, trauma to their head. So yes, her mother probably did get worse, but I think that things were not good for Tiffany from the get-go. Yeah, I don't think, you know, nobody was really checking in on them. I think with Tiffany trying to run a house as if she was the mother to her brothers and her sisters. So that's just what I wanted to add on to that.
And I think that happens a lot with the older sibling, but I just think it was too much responsibility for her. And the other thing I wanted to touch on was she made it through the 9th grade. Now, I don't know for sure. I know some courses were not like on grade level, but she made it to 9th grade, reading on a 2nd grade level. So that meant that every year that she was maybe just being put ahead without, and then, you know, notes get sent home. You know, I mean, anybody that's a parent, you know, you get those notes. Your child is not reading on this level. Your child needs this. Your child needs that. I mean, I'm saying, I still say neglect. And, you know, the mom, even before then, had to, you know that maybe, I think Tiffany was probably just trying to do whatever she could when she did her own homework. Probably wasn't getting checked over. I mean, I don't know about
absolutely. I definitely don't think it was. I definitely don't think it was getting.
Yeah, I don't think any homework was getting checked over. But the 2nd grade level is really a basic level. I don't know if anybody knows anything about 2nd grade level reading, but those are not even chapter books. Those are books that, you know, Dr. Seuss,
right,
and a little bit further, and that's it. And those are rhyming word books. Those are books that don't even have. So for her, that must have been a huge struggle and something to carry that burden and that secret that I really can't read. I really can't. And you know, reading, people equate reading to you're being smart or dumb. And I know that she probably felt as though she was dumb because she always talked about trying to hide it. And that's where the comedic part of her came in, and just the game, her running like a game, like, if you do this for me, and then it just must have been a cycle. And that's why I say I now understand Tiffany a lot more, because even when she does interviews, I can see the child side of Tiffany.
Oh,
Tiffany
yes.
takes everything at the worst. If someone tells her something, she's going to tell a story, and she's going to tell it all, because that's the innocence of the child. She's not going to sugarcoat anything. She's not going, because she's going to just tell you, because there was she really didn't have the childhood. And I think part of me believes that Tiffany's mentality stopped at a certain age, although you're in a business and you have to learn a business. But part of me believes that her childhood, she stopped, and you could just see some of the things she talks about is as a child, and that's due to the childhood of no support.
Right. I
And
definitely want to jump in there too, because when you actually listen to the audio book, to me
uh-huh,
it sounds like a child is almost reading it. Like, even though she's funny and she's humorous, it's kind of
mhm,
like you wouldn't expect. And I mean, if anyone has listened to audio books, even though she's funny, it just sounds like a teenager, like at the maybe sixth grade camp, and telling a story time. That's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like a grown woman. Tiffany's 38 years old, but I don't think her mentality is one of 38. And I think it's beyond humor. It's not because she's a comedian. I think some people look at it like, oh, she's a comedian, so she's just being funny. But I think she's using the comedy to cover up a whole bunch of other things. Now,
things. Mhm,
I know some people were saying, when we were talking about this on the live, that we were going to review the book, some people were saying, I really don't like her. I really think that she puts on, I don't think that things were as bad as what they were. And I just want to say that I think one thing, I don't know too many people who would want to confess that they cannot read or could not read that well if they could, because of all things that you would want to lie on yourself about. I don't think that would be one of them. Two, I don't think you would want to say that you went to school dirty or unclean or
right,
unkept. And by
right.
now, someone from that neighborhood or someone that she went to school with would have came through and said, hold on a minute, I know her. We went to
And
middle
called her
school
out.
together. She
Mhm,
always had fresh clothes on. She always looked good. And
mhm,
I also think that Tiffany got the worst treatment out of her siblings, because her mother constantly reminded her that she looked like her ugly father. And at that point, she
mhm.
didn't have a relationship with her father or know her father to even really know what he looked like. So she's just imagining in her head that her father must just look like the worst person on earth. And Tiffany's mother is not the only woman that does that. There are women that do it all the time. You go out here, you lay up with someone, you have a child with them, but then every time you see them, you want to take out your issues you have with that person because they remind you of that man you slept with. But that child didn't ask to be
True.
born. Tiffany didn't ask
They
to be
did not.
born, and her other siblings had a different father. So, and I might be jumping all over the place, or jumping ahead. I'm sorry, Sherry, but I just wanted to add this in there. Her siblings had the same father, which was the one that, Tiffany had talked about, had cut the brake lines and tried to, cause
Yeah,
her mother
yeah.
to have the accident. When it all came
And
down
he
to it,
actually said, I'm
no,
sorry,
go ahead,
go
honey.
ahead. He actually said to her, this is what she said. He said, I thought you guys would be together. And you remember, Tiffany begged her mother to let her keep the kids, because the mother was talking about how tired she was and how, to pay for a babysitter and this and that. And Tiffany begged her mother to let her keep the kids and her stay home, because normally they would have to get up real early and go with her. So he actually confessed, this is what Tiffany said, to really thinking all of them were in there.
Absolutely.
And he had some type of insurance on all of them. But that goes back to a child's mentality, because at this time she's 20 or 18. So hears the story, but yet shows no animosity towards him.
Right.
I mean, it didn't sound like she did.
No.
Now, we all know that if, I don't care, if you did me wrong, my mother wrong, and my siblings, as we get adults, we're going to be angry with you, and you're not going to be able to tell me this information, and it not set well with me. Now, she did talk about how she tried to sleep with different police officers and lawyers to try to find out what she could do about that. But the part that gets me is the way that she did not really hold that animosity, and that's more like a child. Like,
it was surprising to me as well. Yeah, and to hear it come from her voice on the audio, it's no different if you're on YouTube and you're telling a story about something in your childhood. If it was traumatic in you, your voice might start to shake, tremble, crack. But she continued to tell that story like it was reading Rainbow. I don't even think she understands. And maybe because, right, and maybe because she didn't die or no one died. And I think that also reiterates the fact that her mama already has some issues, because if this car accident caused her mother to go from 0 to 1,000,000, Tiffany might have been a little bit more angry, but she was willing to go out and having lunch, dinner, or whatever with him. So I don't think I don't think that car accident had her mom too far off from wherever she already was. It might have gotten people involved, to start looking into the house and seeing what was going on. And she was trying her best to keep the house up. But when you actually listen to her, it really sounds like a child talking, or a teenager talking. And I think that a lot of people they overlook that because she's laughing about it or she's making jokes about it. But I do think it's painful, and some things I think she just doesn't even understand, that they're completely unacceptable. Unacceptable, even down to the point of having her, I believe it was her step grandfather. I'm not for sure if the sucking her breast because she used to stuff her bra, wanting to have big boobs.
He called her stuffing her bra.
There you go.
She called her stuffing her bra, and he told her, "You don't have to do that." And so then she began, which she didn't know, but she began, which was really molestation, of him sucking her breast, telling her, "This is the way you get bigger breasts." And there you go again. Every adult, I don't care what you say, there's no adult that I can look in her background and say that did not fail her. Even though she does talk highly of her grandmother, yes, her grandmother finally did take her to the doctor to get that wart bored off, but how long did you have to see her that way?
Well, not only that, her grandmother is also a disgrace, because and maybe it's just the love I have for my grandmother, rest in peace, but most of the times I feel like grandmothers are protectors when your mother is not doing all what she should be doing. But when the CPS, or it might be called something different depending on where y'all live, but here Child Protective Services got involved.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
They gave the stepfather, they asked him, "Do you want to take all the kids, or do you want to just take your kids?" He only wanted to take, he said no, he didn't want none of them. I'm sorry, he didn't want any of the kids.
He didn't want none of them, not even his own.
Yes, he didn't want any of the kids at all. They got separated. And then Tiffany, she went through group homes and different stuff like that. But at one point, she was living with her grandmother. but her grandmother was getting a check. And see, a lot of people don't know that either. If you take in a family member, and you can get a check the same way a foster home would. But once Tiffany turned 18 and her grandmother realized that those checks was not coming in no more, her grandmother put her out. Her
She
own
sure did.
grandmother put her out over money.
And
So,
then once again, Tiffany didn't doesn't feel any type of. I mean, she doesn't understand that that's not okay. I mean, that's not okay. That child had no preparation skills for life, no living skills, nothing.
right. And even though she talked about, once the check stopped, it still didn't sound like it came from a place of anger, or either she's a very good storyteller to the point where she can just stick on script. That's all I can say, because I mean, even with that, I think that would have shook my emotion a little bit to take me back to that place. But I truly
Yeah,
believe that Tiffany is stuck, you know, um in probably in the ninth grade still, as funny as she
yeah,
is. And none of the things that we're saying is in any way, shape, or form to bash Tiffany. Like, I love Tiffany Haddish. I am a Tiffany Haddish fan. And I will be honest, I did not know who she was until Girls Trip. And I was surprised to
hmm,
see when I checked her, what is it called? The IBM, or whatever it's called, where you see
yeah,
other things that they've been involved in. I was really shocked to see how many other things and roles she had been a part of. But with Girls Trip, she stole that show amongst three other actresses, very well known, and I didn't care nothing about what they was talking about. But I will say this, and this is in no way no shade, or to be nasty or messy, but I feel like Tiffany played herself in that movie. Just like how
yeah,
they gave Andrew Caldwell a script to play whatever he played on that play stage show. Tiffany played Tiffany on Girls Trip. I think in
yeah.
real life, if one of her friends calls her to hang out, that is Tiffany. That's
That would be
Tiffany.
her.
That's
Hmm.
her. That's her all day long.
And no shade to Tiffany, but I do question whether when she does get her script, can she even really truly read her part?
Yes.
I think someone may assist her and may also allow her to add there, because Tiffany has an uncanny ability to bring herself to whatever character she is playing. So I think they know that. And
I couldn't
I
agree
think,
more, because you know what? Chris Tucker did that. And I'm not saying he can't read, but with Rush Hour, they were saying how he would do stuff and it would be funny and then they would just use it. And I honestly
mm-hmm,
do
mm-hmm,
believe that um either someone was reading some things for Tiffany. And the reason why I say that is because when Tiffany got married and she went through her husband's phone, and this goes later on, which I'll talk about, but I just want to talk about the reading part. When she went through his phone to go see what he was up to or what he was doing, he says, I don't know why you're going through my phone, because you can't read and you're not going to know what you're reading anyway. So the fact that
anyway.
he said that, and this is way, way, like not too long ago, that tells me that even though she says she can read now, I still believe she can't read that well. She might can read enough to get by.
So I think Tiffany not really having someone that really loved her, she never knew what real relationships were. So she taught, like, unfortunately, she was molested. Unfortunately, she experienced things that she did not have to experience at an early age. So even as she got older, and I know that Shelley's going to speak about that, she the sex, she associated sex, I think she got taken advantage of a lot.
Yes, I definitely
So,
believe she got taken advantage of a lot from
I
within the
mean,
family and outside of the family.
and outside, just this last little thing. She sent a candygram, and I don't know how many of y'all, we had them at our school too. There was this thing where you can send candy in a little note to someone every, and she didn't really have a lot of money, but she would send that one particular boy, a candygram almost every day, and he had no intention of ever being with her, and yet I'm believing that what she wrote, he could not even read what she wrote because she could not really write anything legible on the candygram, but it just went to show how he would use her for that piece of candy, and later on basically said, well, I can't be with you because you this. I can't be with you because you that. But yet he had no intention of ever being with him. And I think she even talked about over a year she sent him. And you gotta have pretty much resilience to send somebody something every day or every week. I forgot how often.
Yeah, she was sending him in lack of comprehension that he was not interested. That was the bottom line to it.
Because you're supposed to write a little note on there, and then they will deliver it to whatever period they deliver. Usually it was homeroom. And whatever she wrote on there, I don't even think he could comprehend because I don't think she could write that well either. And that was just a whole nother story of sad how, he used her, And maybe he did tell her in so many ways, and maybe she still did not know what he was saying because her life had been so harsh. And maybe he did tell her. We still don't know. I just think that that's important as well.
I agree. I mean, I think when someone tries to kill you and your entire family, and you're okay with that person, or you have, I guess, per se, forgiven them, or whatever the case may be, then, I mean, what's the harm of a candygram and no one's responding back to it? So I guess we have to just view it that way. It's just childlike. She has a childlike mind, and that's in no way to be disrespectful, but that's what I got out of it. I believe Cher picked up on that, and when I listened to the audio, I really was picking more up of, wow, this is childlike speaking.
See, you're in her interviews, don't you know that, Shelly, it is a childlike, like they think that she's just being over
the top,
way.
right.
But I believe in her childlike mind, what they tell her, she believes, and she's genuinely excited to be there, just like a child. She's genuinely excited to answer any questions that you may have for her. And she always says, how much time you got? Because she really wants to tell them authentically everything that they're asking her.
And not leave out a single thing. And not leave out a single, I said, and not leave out a single thing, because that's what children will do. You ask a child, like, I don't know which commercial they have, and they're like, can we speak to your mom? They're like, she's in the shower. They're like, is your dad available? He's in the shower too. Kids don't know, and it's that childlike mind frame that Tiffany has.
Yeah, she just telling all. It's like she's so proud about boo-booing in someone's shoe. I mean, she wants to tell that story over and over again, and it's like, okay, now you think that was a good revenge point? Like, we as women, we can really think about some revenge stuff.
Yeah, I thought of a lot of things to do, but I ain't never thought about pooping in somebody's shoe.
Exactly. You cheat on me, I'm going to do some other stuff, but I don't think I'm going to worry about squatting my tail down or however she got it in the shoe, and then just laughing about it, cracking up. It's like, okay, but that's mentality and
unacceptable, even down to the point of having her, I believe it was her step grandfather. I'm not for sure if the sucking her breast because she used to stuff her bra, wanting to have big boobs.
She called her stuffing her bra.
There you go. Go ahead, sis. Got it.
She called her stuffing her bra, and he told her, you don't have to do that. And so then she began, which she didn't know, but she began, which was really molestation of him sucking her breast, telling her, this is the way you get bigger breasts. And there you go again. Every adult, I don't care what you say. There's no adult that I can look in her background and say that did not fail her. Even though she does talk highly of her grandmother, yes, her grandmother finally did take her to the doctor to get that wart bored off, but how long did you have to see her that way?
Well, not only that, her grandmother is also a disgrace because, and maybe it's just the love I have for my grandmother, rest in peace. But most of the times, I feel like grandmothers are protectors when your mother is not doing all what
Yes.
she should be doing. Now, when it came down to her grandfather sucking her breast, she didn't even realize that that was abnormal, or, no adult had said to her, Tiffany, this is not right. It actually took her to go to school, and there was a classmate who was saying that she wanted to have big breasts, and Tiffany was like, all you got to do is find somebody to suck on your breasts and they'll get bigger. That's when the friend told her, no girl, nobody should be doing that, that's wrong, that's molestation. That's when she then knew that that was inappropriate. So up until that point, she had no idea that that was not acceptable. All right, so I gotta talk about Roscoe. She dated Roscoe. She talks about him a lot in her comedy shows. She met him working at a grocery store or whatever. Roscoe has special needs, okay? She always talks about how he had one dead hand and one hand that was good. But beyond that, I'm not making fun of nobody with disabilities. I got a whole bunch of them, right? But obviously he couldn't talk correctly either, because in the audio book she would imitate the way that he talked. So there was more than just that one hand that was messed up, right? So she felt like God had sent Roscoe to her so that she could be humble. So when she finally decides to give him a chance, she was like, I'm going to fuck the shit out of him. Now, I mean, she did talk a lot about, you know, sexual kind of stuff. She still talks about that. That is combined with bipolar sometimes. I'm not trying to diagnose the girl. I'm just saying, I don't know. So anyway, Roscoe ended up cutting her off or whatever, told her she had the worst pussy he had ever had. It was no good or whatever. Now, when she went to go pick him up in her Geo Metro, she pulls up at at his house or whatever, to take him out because he didn't have a car. And she was like, wow, how much money is Roscoe making? Because he's living in this big old house. And she didn't realize that Roscoe was living in a fucking group home. And everybody else in the group home was special needs, okay? And Roscoe was the smartest out of the whole group. I mean, Tiff, I get it when you never had love before. You take it where you can get it, but boo, 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 boo. What is really going on, okay? So Roscoe ended up quitting his job so he didn't have to see Tiffany no more. He ended up moving out the group home so he didn't have to see her no more. And then in her book, she was like, Roscoe, if you listening to this book, I love you and I miss you. That just reiterates to me that she never really had love, and whatever this man told her, he made her feel really good about herself. It's funny in a way, but then it's sad at the same time. I do not believe Tiffany is putting on. Who in the hell would admit that they fucked a dude with one dead arm and who has special needs in the group home? Nobody in their right frame of mind. I'm just saying. Okay, then there was a time where she was going through a whole lot of issues, female problems with bleeding, stomach hurting, being sick. She had seen a therapist and they had put her on antidepressants. Now, I'm going to say I love Tiffany, but I do believe there's something mental that's going on there, whether it's no more than ADD, because even the way that she writes this book, she goes from A to Z, and then she goes back to A, and then she's at C, and then she goes to F, and she's at R. Like, her book is just like my videos. They're all over the place. It's in no type of order. It's just going around in circles, and you really have to be able to, like, intake everything that she's giving you. So anyway, I just want to say that because they did send her to a psychiatrist. She was saying that her therapist was really nice and her therapist was always laughing. So she would ask her therapist, why are you always laughing? Her therapist was telling her how funny she was or whatever, and told her that she should go to some type of comedy camp or whatever. I never heard of those being a possibilities or options. I mean, ain't nobody ever offered for me to go nowhere other than the hospital. But anyway, she did that. She started doing a lot of open mic nights and stuff, and the more she started doing comedy, The less she had bleeding, the less her stomach was hurting, the less she was crying, and the less she was depending on antidepressants. Maybe she should have stayed on a few. I'm not promoting them, but I'm just saying that something's not adding up. So moving on. Later on, she talks about dating a guy for racist reasons. And this would probably be the only thing in the book that kind of ticked me off when it came to Tiffany, because she said the only reason why she dated him is because she thought he was white. Why did you feel the need that you had to date a white man? Or why did you think you needed validation from a white person? What was it like? Why did you think that? I don't know, maybe if a white man accepted you, you would feel better about yourself. I don't know. But anyway, he had to have surgery for a rotator cuff, and she was looking on his charts, and she said according to his blood work, it showed that he was African American. I never knew that your blood work had nothing to do with what color you are. I thought it was just, A positive or O minus or whatever, you know what I mean? But she said she asked the nurse, and the nurse confirmed that she was, that he was African American. So my question was, one, why did you feel the need that you had to date a white man? Two, why did this black man feel the need to pretend to be white? Like, just none of that whole thing really makes sense to me. But okay, moving forward, I guess once she found out, she left him alone. Later on, Tiffany did get married, okay? But before she got married, she was homeless, okay? Because even though she was doing these little gigs, she was only making like $10 and $15. That's literally what she was making. She was living out of her car, out of her little Geo Metro, and she was friends with Kevin Hart. She credits him in the book, and she also credits him in a lot of interviews for helping her out and getting her off of the streets. However, Kevin Hart gave her $300 and told her to go get you a motel room for the week. And she even said in the book, like, where am I going to get a motel for $300 for the whole week at in LA? Now, I understand just because he's rich doesn't mean that he has to just pile and give people tons and bunches of money. But her being a female living in her car, being homeless, like, you don't have a pool house, you don't have an extra home somewhere. You couldn't have got her a Airbnb for the month. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't have went and booked her a hotel for the month. I mean, she did give him props by, booking her some gigs and stuff like that. But when I've seen Kevin Hart buy the Breakfast Club brand new chairs and stuff like that, I'm just looking at him like, you are cheap, chintzy, inconsiderate. You don't have no type of feelings, no heart, no nothing. Like $300 and she's living in her car. Like, oh my goodness. I mean, I know you can't save everybody, but come on now. Like, you had to know what it was at some point to be a struggling comedian, and you see her as a woman living in her car. Totally unacceptable. So later on, Tiffany did get married. She said that she suffered through domestic violence, and she did leave her husband. But like many women, including myself, not in this situation, but been there, done that, this will be a whole different video. She did get back with him. She got back with him, and she actually remarried him. She finally filed for divorce in 2013. But the reason why she filed for divorce will probably blow your mind. You will probably think that she divorced him because he was beating up on her or doing whatever. She actually filed for divorce because she found out that he had a child that he didn't have a relationship with. Now, he did have to pay child support through the court, which was $1,000 a month, but he did not have a relationship. And because she had a rough upbringing and didn't have her father and her mother really around, to her that was unacceptable. So that was the final straw as far as her and the husband. Now, she says the husband beat her so bad until she had a miscarriage. The husband went on the radio and disputed all of these things, that he never abused her, and he has proof that he is not the reason why she had a miscarriage. Of course, I can't see him confessing. Who's going to say, yes, I beat her up or whatever like that? You know what I'm saying? However, from what she's saying, he's always still trying to get back with her and wanting to be with her. I don't know if it's... Another fact that some people might not know is when she was on the Ellen show, she was promised a car. So she thought this was going to be her car for her to have. But the catch was they told her she could rent the car whenever she wanted to. Well, Tyler Perry has broke down and actually bought Tiffany Haddish her first car that she owns. So she no longer has to rent cars, do Uber, ride with other people or anything like that. So, all that little shady stuff Monique you was doing, recording phone calls, right, wrong, and indifferent. Tyler and came through and got Tiffany a car. Congratulations on that car, Tiffany. Also, Jada gave her a bunch of designer clothing because Tiffany was still using knockoff Michael Kors bags and stuff like that, and she was basically letting her know that in Hollywood everything is about image, it's about what you're wearing. Tiffany wanted to go to some awards with some $85 dress that she had got, and Jada was like, nah boo, you really can't do that. She left the tags on all of the clothing, and Tiffany didn't understand why, and she was like, Jada was like, I didn't pay for these clothes. Designers will give you clothes for you to wear their stuff and promote their stuff. This is just a part of the business, you know what I mean? But I think that Tiffany, truth be told, is a product of her environment, and at her being 38 at this time in her life is not going to change. Who she is just who she is, and she's not going to change. I just really don't see that for her. There was a point in time that she had even got into Scientology, and so in Scientology, they wanted them to sleep in bunk beds. And that was one of the reasons why she flipped out, because she was in bunk beds, being in group homes. And she acted out so bad that they basically let her out of Scientology. And you know how hard that is to come the hell up out of Scientology, okay? So I thought that was also very interesting. Now, here's another thing. Now, people have shaded her for wearing that white dress over and over again, but she said that she paid $4,000 for it, and she's going to wear it as many times as she can, and I don't blame her. If you're not used to having shit and then you get something, you're not going to just want to go and buy $1 million dress when you know that you got other people that you want to take care of. Right now, she's trying to take care of her mom. She offered to take care of her father before he passed away. She has siblings, and she never really had anything, so she just doesn't want to go out here all willy-nilly and spending her money. I see nothing wrong with her recycling her dress as long as it's clean or whatever the case may be. So yeah, that's just another little fun fact that I wanted to add in there. Now, she did finally meet her biological father, and she offered for him to live with her, and he declined. Later on in life, I guess he must have noticed that some money was coming in, and he changed his mind and kind of said, okay, well, I want to live with you. And she's basically like, too little too late or whatever. But the crazy part is her father was Jewish. So Tiffany was making a lot of her money by doing bar mitzvahs, doing weddings and stuff like that. She called it pimping to serve. So she was like the entertainment. She called herself the Flavor Flav of the bar mitzvahs or whatever. So that's how she made her money and stuff like that. Now, when she did get married, I guess the second time, her father was against it. Why? I'm not really for sure. I don't know if it was for religious purposes or whatever, but if he wasn't in her life, I mean, I think it's worth reading. I will say this. There were some misspellings in the book, but I will say this. The same people who published her book, I'm not going to put the other person on blast, but I have a friend who got her book published and edited by this company, and it was all kind of grammar mistakes, spelling mistakes, and everything else. So I don't know who they got working for them or what is going on, but I also think that people should not be hard on her, because she was honest enough to say that she could read in the 9th grade, but it really wasn't until the 10th grade until she actually really learned how to read. But if it's been that long, I mean, how well can you really read is all what I'm saying. So again, thank you, Cher, for doing this review with me. I hope that we didn't give you too much, so that if you decide to go ahead and read the book, you will enjoy it.
I have enjoyed reviewing this book with you. It did help me to learn more about Tiffany, and I do encourage people to read it and just understand believe that she's real. I believe that she's genuinely real with her actions and her thoughts.
Everything that she does, absolutely.